able to use your chat box and type them into our chat bubble here. If you want to make sure you can hear us clearly, make sure that you click the phone icon and make sure that you dial in and use your conference ID that we've given you. Welcome to Retirement Planning, our last webinar in the Alumni Summer Financial Webinar Series. My name is Karen Katusian, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. We'll also have other facilitators with us this evening, including Paige Carbone, Director of Alumni Engagement, as well as Lisa Galasso, our Assistant Director. We'd like to introduce John Johnson, class of 1986, President of Balanced Financial Solutions. And when we started these webinars, I asked John to participate in this because not only is he president of a financial institution that he runs, but he's also an expert on all things retirement planning. Any questions that you might have at any stage of life that you're in, whether you're a new alum that just graduated from college or whether you are later on in life and you might have questions about what you can do at the point you're at in life right now to start saving, John will be happy to answer any of those questions for you. If you have questions, please hold on to them. We're going to be addressing them at the end, but you'll be able to type them in our chat box as well. And now we're going to give it over to John so that he can give us his presentation. Thank you, John.
Well, thanks, Karen. I'm looking at the slide and it says, wow, class of 1986. That means I graduated 30 years ago. Doesn't seem like 30 years ago, but it's a long, long time ago, and a lot of great memories at St. Joe's. So I'm really happy to do this if I can help out anybody in any way. I've been in the business about 15 years now, so I've come across all kinds of people with all kinds of different issues. And I'm also a Suffolk County Police Sergeant. I work in the 5th Precinct in Patchogue. I've been doing that 29 years now. Okay, well, we got to start somewhere. So the first question that we have to ask ourselves is how much money will you need when you retire? Well, many people stay healthy and active for 20 years or more after they retire. Advances in medicine, joint replacement, even doing tooth replacement now with implants and stuff. Nothing's wearing out anymore. If it does wear out, they replace it. So the earlier, if you start planning and investing soon enough, you can spend those years enjoying yourself instead of worrying about paying the bills. What about I'll just live on Social Security? There's a good chance that Social Security won't be there for us. If you remember a few years ago that the federal government tried to privatize Social Security, which would have meant that you would have been responsible for investing your own money in different investment vehicles, which was probably a very bad idea. Okay, still continuing with the how much money you will need theme, let's take a look at it. Everybody's situation is different. I can't stress that enough. Some people need less planning. Some people need more guidance. People's home lives is different. People's how many children they have. What are your hobbies? I like to ski and to sail and to play tennis, and they're pretty expensive hobbies, so I might need more money than most when I retire. Retirement plans, your source of income. Well, 401ks and 403bs, which are essentially the same thing. A 401k is for a company, and a 403b is for a not-for-profit. You have traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, whole life insurance, and Social Security, which we talked about. And it's very, very important that you start saving for retirement as soon as you can. Now, if you start in your 20s, you're much better off than people who start in their 40s, but that doesn't mean that all is lost. Now, believe it or not, something like this, not as severe, has happened to me. Somebody who's retiring very, very soon walked in and said, please don't be this guy. I retire on Friday and I haven't saved a dime. Well, here's your chance to become a legend. Well, that doesn't work that way. You have to take a look at financial planning for your retirement is your responsibility. Nobody will do it but you. So let's take a look at what you can do to start. If you work for a company or a government institution or a not-for-profit, like you say, you're a teacher, they have employer retirement, sponsored retirement plans. The traditional employer-funded retirement plans are disappearing, where you have, years ago, though, the airlines and places like that had, and IBM had pension plans, traditional employer-funded plans, and they're just gone, just going away. You've got to save for yourself. And we said Social Security benefits may not ensure a comfortable lifestyle. Social Security, the average monthly benefit right now in 2016 for somebody collecting Social Security is $1,341 a month. I don't think any of us could really live very well on $1,341 a month. So without a retirement plan, you could face a future of financial uncertainties and hardships. Okay, what are the advantages of starting early? Well, reaching retirement sooner. Retiring early means starting early. There's no way you can retire at 60 if you start saving for retirement at 55. It's just not going to happen. There's not enough time. More time equals more money. And the next two bullets are the power of investing tax deferred and the power of compound interest. And I'll explain them a little bit. Compound interest. Interest which is calculated not only on the initial principal, but the accumulated interest of prior periods. The more you get into something that uses compound interest to save, the better off you're going to be. As a matter of fact, Albert Einstein was so impressed with the principle of compounding that he said, it's the greatest mathematical discovery of all time. It's definitely the greatest mathematical discovery for retirement planning, there's no doubt about it. So let's take a look at what tax-deferred savings mean. Tax deferral means that the amount you contribute escapes the usual income taxes until you start withdrawing the money years later. As a result, more of your money can earn investment returns over time, an enormous advantage over ordinary accounts. It also decreases your taxable income, so it lowers the tax you have to pay the government every year. So you can go into a lower tax bracket sometimes just because you're using tax-deferred savings like a 401k or a traditional IRA.
So, John, just to ask a quick question about tax deferred, would this also be for some individuals who maybe pay into health plans where they're asked, they do it pre-tax, where that money is taken out of their paycheck before?
Yes, but you have to use that for the health expenses.
Okay, so if, let's say, if somebody's making $50,000 a year, but $10,000 of that is used towards health expenses, their income that they're actually reporting is $40,000.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
It depends on where you are. Where do I invest my retirement savings? The stock market returned 10% a year on average between 1926 and 2015 versus just 5.5% for bonds, according to Morningstar. So given stocks' superior returns over the long haul, most financial advisors recommend that investors whose retirement is more than 20 years away hold at least 3/4 of their portfolios in stock and stock funds. Now, let's investigate this just a little further. When you are talking about doing stock and stock funds, you can look at Vanguard, T. Rowe Price. They have these retirement-related mutual funds that say you're going to retire in 20 years or 40 years. They take all the guessing out of it for you. They manage that money. So if you're retiring in 40 years and you buy into one of those funds, those timed funds, you could actually take all of the decision-making about how much stocks or bonds or whatever you could hold, and they'll do it for you. It's built into the cost of the fund. So that's something to consider as you invest in the stock market. Okay. So take advantage of your employer's retirement plan. If you work for somebody who has a 401k that matches your contributions in some way, you've got to do it. You have to put some money in it. You don't have to max out, because as you can see, for a 403b or 401k or a 457 plan, you can contribute $18,000 a year in 2016. And if you're 50 years or older, you can make an additional catch-up contribution of up to $6,000 for a total of $24,000 in 2016. And that sounds like a lot of money, and you know what, it is. And not everybody can max out. People think that just because they can't put the maximum into their retirement plan, that they can't put any money in, and that's just not the case. If you could put $100 in, remember, if you get $100,000 saved in one of these plans to supplement your retirement, that's $1,000 a month for 100 months. So you have to start early, and you just have to start. Okay, this graph is pretty self-explanatory. Take a look at the blue line. The blue line's on top, and it shows that Susan invested $5,000 annually between the ages of 25 and 35. That's it. She invested for 10 years, and she didn't invest any more after that, but she started really early, started at 25. So when she got to retirement age 65, she had $1 million in there. Think about that. Her total investment was only $50,000, but because she started early, she has a huge amount of money. Bill invested $5,000 annually from 35 to 65, a considerably longer time, and he put in $150,000. Look how much less he has because he started later. Okay? And see, Chris, it was in the middle because she started early and put $5,000 between 25 and 65, and she invested a total of $200,000. So this graph demonstrates the power of starting early. Same thing, another investment, if you take a look on the side on the left, someone who invested $2,000 a year from the age of 18 to 27, a total investment of $20,000. When they got to retirement age at 65, they had $361,000 in their retirement account. Conversely, if you looked at this person's sister, who started at 31 and invested $2,000 a year every year until she was 65, she only came up with $276,000. That's an $85,000 difference just because you started early. Okay, what if I didn't start early? You know, college costs for the kids, other things within your life, a death in the family, a loss of a job for a certain amount of time. I had two people live next door to me who both lost their job at the same time. They went from making about $300,000 a year to nothing. And they struggled. They had to raid their retirement account for a couple of years just to survive. That happens. If you take a look at what Bankrate said in 2014, a national poll conducted by Bankrate, more than a quarter of the survey respondents, 50 to 64, had not started saving for retirement. And that's really significant because people think 65 is the retirement age. So what if I didn't start early? Well, you may need to create a budget and spend a spending plan to boost your savings amount. You're going to have to cut out a lot of things to save as much money as you can. You're probably going to have to try to save more than the maximum that you can put into a 401k plan. And consider downsizing, and I mean everything. If your house, the kids are gone, and you have a big house and you're paying, you know what it's like to pay taxes on Long Island for property taxes. Maybe consider downsizing. Maybe next time comes time to buy a car, you don't buy a Lexus, you buy a Subaru or something. But you have to save money for retirement. And don't hold too much money in cash. There's no returns in cash right now. Look at your savings account. You're getting like 0.1% interest on your cash. Consider target date retirement funds, the ones I was talking about before, the target date that take the investment decisions out of your hands. And you might have to consider working longer. 65 might not be a retirement age for you. I mean, I know a lot of people working deep into their 70s, 72, 74, not necessarily because they didn't save for retirement, because they want to, but sometimes if you didn't save, you're going to have to work a little longer. What about this side of the financial plan that not many people look at? What about, not talking about investments for a second, what about talking about protecting what you have? Insurance is a big part of any financial plan, and that's every type of insurance. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, Medicare insurance, health insurance, everything is a big part. An unforeseen catastrophe can cost you everything. I can speak from experience. My first wife passed away at 34 years old, and we didn't have any life insurance when she died because she got sick at 27, and hey, who gets sick at 27 and dies at 34? Well, it happened to us, and I couldn't pay the mortgage off when she passed away because once you get sick, you can't get life insurance. That's it. It's over. So insurance is a very big part of protecting your next nest egg. So let's get a coverage review. When was the last time you looked at your homeowners and auto insurance coverage? Do you have any idea what amount of liability you have on your auto policy or your homeowner's policy? Any at all? Most people have no idea. They bought their house 10 years ago. They get the renewal thing in the mail every year. They send a check. They have no idea what amount of coverage is. I had a friend of mine. He's a CPA. He was driving around with $50,000 of liability coverage on his auto insurance, and he has two Mercedes-Benzes. $50,000 goes nowhere.
John, can you explain just for a second what liability coverage actually is? And
how liability coverage, if you cause an accident and it's your fault and you hurt somebody pretty bad, you're liable. It's determined that you are wrong, and you know what? They can sue you, and they can sue you big. And that's where that next bullet comes in. Do you have an umbrella policy? And there are questions about what an umbrella policy is, and if you have a $250,000 limit of liability on your auto insurance, and you cause an accident and you hurt somebody pretty bad, and they can't work. Let's say it's a doctor or a surgeon. I know this is an extreme example, but let's say he can't work for half a year. So now he sues you for $1 million for the 6 months of lost wages because you hurt him in a car accident. All right, you're going to get the first $250,000 in the liability of the auto insurance. Where's the next $750,000 going to come from? It's going to devastate you to be, found liable in court unless you have an umbrella policy. Umbrella policies can come in $1 million to $5 million policies, and they're really, really inexpensive. They're a few $100s a year. Why insurance people don't tell their clients to buy these things is unknown to me, because God forbid something happens. I know someone who, out in Hamptons who had an elevated deck on the second floor. He had a party of 100 people over, and the deck collapsed. He had $300,000 of liability insurance on his homeowner's policy, and he's been sued for millions of dollars. People broke their back when it collapsed. So, had no umbrella policy. I wasn't his insurance guy, but if I saw someone with a 50-foot elevated deck, I would say you need a $5 million umbrella policy in addition to your homeowner's insurance. You have to protect what you have. If you don't protect what you have, you could lose it in a heartbeat. Everybody has a car accident. It's just some are less fortunate than others. And what about life insurance? I talked about that briefly when I was talking about my own situation. What would happen if you passed away suddenly? Could your family survive without you or your income? What about disability insurance? Are you an attorney? Are you a doctor? You don't get sick days. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Disability insurance protects your income in the event that you have you get ill, or you have some kind of accident where you can't carry out your own occupation anymore. Who's going to pay your salary if you can't work? Disability is where disability insurance comes in. It protects your income, which is one of your most valuable assets. And what about long-term care insurance? Long-term care insurance has gotten expensive over the years, but if you're making a good living, it's something we should look into. Long-term care insurance pays for nursing home care, custodial care, and for home care when people need to be taken care of in their house. If you put someone to a nursing home today in downstate New York, it's about $15,000 a month for nursing home care. $15,000 a month. Who can sustain that? Who could survive that? Okay, let's talk about saving for college, because I have 2-year-old twins, so I've been saving for college for about 2 years now. It is important, but this is a little bit of a joke we have here. Your mother and I need more time to save for your college education. We'd like you to go back to kindergarten and start over. All right, it sounds funny, but realistically, we do want to give our kids the best chance we can when it comes to college. But I have people come to me who have $25,000 saved for retirement and $200,000 saved in junior's college account. Well, let me tell you something. You can borrow for college, but you cannot borrow for retirement. If we go to the next slide, you'll see saving for your child's education is important, but saving for retirement is much more important. I can't stress that enough. You can always take loans for college if necessary, but you cannot borrow for retirement. Cannot. Government-sponsored 529 plans are a great way to save for college. You can put money into that's tax deferred, and anything you use for education expenses for the children are tax-free. That could be a whole other webinar. And whole life insurance, cash value life insurance is another great way to save if you're looking to save above what the 529 plan allows you to contribute. And cash value for insurance isn't factored into financial aid calculations, which is also very important. Okay, keys to a successful plan. Start early. I can't stress that enough. I think I've said that a million times during this webinar. Be committed. Don't skip months when it comes down to putting stuff away for retirement. Make sure the money goes in every month. If you're doing a Roth IRA or something you contribute to yourself that's not coming directly out of your paycheck, please, please, please be committed and get that money in there every month, even if it's $100 a month, $50 a month. Just get it in there. Minimize your exposures as best you can by getting the right insurance coverage. Please, you have to protect what you have. If you don't, it really could ruin your entire life. And, of course, take advantage of your employer's plan if your employer sponsors your plan. Okay, that's me. That's my webinar. That's our website address. It's a fairly new website. I'd like you to take a look at it and give me some feedback. It's got a lot of great information on it. What we specialize in is making sure that not only are you saving for retirement, but that all of your liabilities and all of your exposures are covered. And it's really not that expensive to make sure they're done the right way. So if you want to call me for a coverage review and take a look at what you have, and if we can help you, we will. And my email is there and my 800 number.
Thank you so much, John. We'd like to now take your questions. Please feel free to type any questions that you have in our chat box. They will come up and we'll be able to ask them directly to John so that he can answer you. We have a couple of questions that we'd like to ask John, but also just so you know, John has left his email and his phone number here as well as his website in case anyone has specific questions about maybe a specific situation that has personal details that they may not want to share, on a webinar or in a chat box. So he's available for you to contact directly if anyone has questions that they need to talk to that are more of a personal nature. But I wanted to ask you, John, for people who are just starting out, maybe just graduated college or even high school at that point, what do you feel is the number one best step? You absolutely have to do this to start saving for your retirement.
Especially when you just start, you've got to open up a Roth IRA. You've got to start putting money away. Roth IRA is not tax deferred in the beginning, but at the end when you take it out, it's generally tax free. So you don't get the tax break up front, but you get it later on. And you don't age out as long as you don't have to take required minimum distributions at 70 and a half. Because the government, you already paid taxes on this money, you don't have to take that money at 70 and a half. So if you don't need it, you can leave it in there. You can still even keep contributing after the age of 70 and a half. So if you're just starting out and you don't have an employer that sponsors a plan, start yourself a Roth IRA, even if it's only $50 a month. Get it going. And all of the big companies, all the big brokerage houses, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, they all have Roth IRAs that you can contribute to.
And how is a Roth IRA different from a traditional IRA?
Traditional IRAs, the money going in is tax deferred. So it comes off of your taxable income. Whereas a Roth IRA, you just write a check after you get paid. You already paid the federal tax on the money that goes into a Roth IRA. So they both have their pluses and minuses. I like the Roth IRA for people who are younger because they don't have to worry about, they can move around from job to job because very few people graduate college and stay in the same job. So you can move around from job to job and not worry about moving that IRA anywhere. And you can put $50 in one month or $100 in the next month. It doesn't really matter. But it's a great vehicle to start.
You just touched on a point that I was going to ask you about for my next question. So you had just mentioned that many people nowadays don't stay at the same position, or they may be jumping around to different positions throughout their 20s, 30s, beyond. For that situation, if maybe someone has changed jobs frequently or they may not have an employer contributing a 401k or retirement plan, what other things besides an employer's plan is there a bank, is there a resource that they could go to start their own 401ks?
Well, you can't start your own 401k. That requires a sponsor by a company, just like a 403b requires a sponsor from a not-for-profit agency. But if you're going to move around a lot, you got to use the IRA is really the best way to go. And the Roth IRA makes it the easiest because it doesn't have to come out of your paycheck. It comes out of your regular, after you cash your paycheck.
We have a question from an alum here.
Sure.
So we have a viewer that says, I have no bills or debt. Where can I put my savings? I already used my 401k to its fullest match.
That's great. I mean, there's so many other things you can do. I mean, if you're maxing out your 401k, that's great. But remember, 401ks have to be used after you're 59 and a half. If you take any money out of that before 59 and a half, for most people, it's subject to a 10% tax penalty. So you want to put your money someplace maybe where you can get to it. Maybe a bank account, maybe a CD. Although they're not paying that much, you can sometimes find things at a 2.5%, 3% somewhere. I saw one recently, I believe. But it'd be money you can get to. So don't tie up all your money into something you have to wait until you're 59 and a half to get.
We have another question from another participant who says, hello, John. I have a small New York State pension from a previous seasonal summer job. I don't expect to return to the public servant sector. Do you have any recommendations regarding withdrawing from that fund and perhaps transferring those monies to my current employer's 401k plan?
If it's allowed. If either plan allows you to roll it into the other plan, then you can do so. You have to take a look at the rules of the plan because they do vary greatly. So that's something you'll have to take up with the state and with your personal 401k plan right now.
So another question, and just for the people who are asking questions, if you need to ask additional questions or clarify, Michael says, great, thank you. Please feel free to add. So another question here, it says, hello, I'm a teacher and I have my pension with the New York State Teachers Retirement System. I have a 403B and a Roth IRA. I don't know what to do with the Roth because I'm told that I make too much now to contribute and should just leave it alone. Another piece of advice was for me to transfer the Roth into a traditional IRA. I'm interested in your thoughts.
You're going to have to talk to your CPA about that. You have to talk to the person who does your taxes because you already threw up a red flag saying you make too much money to be eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA anymore. So that's too much of a general question for me to answer with the information that I have in front of me. But, talk to your CPA about whoever does your taxes, whether it's a CPA or not, and see what suggestions they have because you don't want to hit any tax penalties and moving stuff around.
Another question, can grandparents use a 529 for college? If so, how and where to start?
Yeah, you can contribute to a 529 plan for your grandchildren. Sure, you absolutely can. Anybody can contribute to it for them as long as it's not over the 15,000. I think it's 15,500 this year. It might be a little higher. I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, grandparents can contribute. I know my in-laws do contribute for both of my children.
That's great. And so just for those of us who may not know, what is a 529?
529 is a federal, refers to the code of the Internal Revenue Service that allows this to happen, and you can save money for somebody's college plan, and it's tax-deferred put in, and if you withdraw it for certain highly restrictive expenses, that the money you take out is tax-free to use for college.
And a follow-up question, where does one go to start a 529?
You go to Fidelity, you go to New York State. You type in New York State 529 plan, you go right to the state and do it with them. Make sure you keep it within state because some financial advisors advise you to buy something from Alaska or some other state. You don't get the tax break then. You got to buy the one from New York State. So that's the way you should do it.
A quick question on my end from speaking from my own personal family background. John, as someone's approaching retirement and they may be getting ready to qualify for things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, what do you recommend or if someone doesn't have a retirement advisor, should they get one?
Yeah, it's a lot of, if you have money with like Fidelity or T. Rowe Price or Vanguard, a lot of those places will offer you free advice. You can speak to a financial planner right online if you want to. Not necessary for you to go out and spend a lot of money and start transferring accounts around to other financial advisors. If you already have an account, well, and even like the State Teachers Retirement System, they have people that will help you. City of New York, they have people that will help you. It's not necessarily you don't have to look too far to get some financial help.
In the event that you're an entrepreneur or you have your own business, what types of insurance or kind of coverage for yourself should you get?
Absolutely. The first thing you think of is general liability. You have to have some kind of liability. God forbid you or one of your employees does something that harms another person or another party or a client or something like that. That's the first thing you should look for. And if you do have employees, you've got to have workers' compensation because you don't have workers' compensation and something happens, the amount of fines are absolutely huge. And we do a lot of that. We do a lot of the workers' compensation for businesses and general liability.
I'd also think maybe disability insurance in the case of you're a business owner and for some reason you can't work.
Absolutely, sure. If you're a business owner and can't work, businesses are rated in what you actually do for a living. A person who does construction work for a living is going to pay a little more money than someone who's a court reporter. It's not really a physical job for disability insurance. So like I said before, everybody's situation is completely different.
I think it's so important that you brought up disability insurance, and it's a really important thing to be mindful of at any age. You shared your experience. My husband has Crohn's disease. He's 38 years old. He couldn't work for almost a year. Nobody expects to not be able to work when you're 38 years old, and how do you support yourself and your family if you have a mortgage, if you have bills to pay, if you have other family members that are dependent on your income to support themselves. So it's a really important thing for all of us to be mindful of, regardless of what age you are, where you're working, where you're living, what you're doing. Be mindful of that something could happen to you or someone else that could affect your ability to generate income. So we want to thank you so much, John, for taking the time to answer our questions. As I mentioned before, John's information is here. We'd like to also encourage you to keep our conversation going, and this was our last webinar in our Alumni Summer Financial Webinar Series. To view all of our previous webinars, you can visit our Alumni Video Vault, and for more in-depth things, John mentioned IRAs, tax-deferred savings, investing, compound interest. These are things that we discussed at length in these two webinars, Investing 101 and Conquering Debt, all of which are now available on our Alumni Video Vault. You'll also want to check us out on Twitter at SJCNY Alumni. If you have any questions for us there, you can also use the hashtag SJCNYRetire. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me, myself, Paige Carbone, or Lisa Galasso. We have active profiles, and we'd love to connect with you, especially if you're an alum or a friend of the college. Maybe you want to do a workshop like this for us. Maybe you want to come and do a webinar for us and show us your expertise. And we'd also like you, if you'd like, to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for all things SJCNY Alumni. We'd like to also just remind you that we have our Centennial Concert coming up. Lisa has posted the ticket link in the chat window. We have student tickets for $50 for current students of the college, and we have other ticket packages and sponsorships as well, featuring platinum recording artist Philip Phillips. If you'd like more information, you can call 631-687-2655. Or you can visit sjcny.edu/100. Lisa has also put the link in the chat box as well. And that's our webinar for tonight. If you have any questions, if there's anything that we can do, if you have something that you'd like to ask me about, maybe you want to give us another suggestion for a webinar topic, we'd like to thank you so much for being here this evening, and we will send you a survey to help you increase the quality of our workshops and programs so we can continue to bring you these kinds of webinars that we think you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a great evening.